Always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Obavljao je više dužnosti u Češkom Ministarstvu vanjskih poslova. Bio je ambasador Češke u Litvaniji i Velikoj Britaniji, zamjenik ministra odbrane i stalni predstavnik Češke u NATO-u. Za Al Jazeeru govori Štefan Fule, evropski komesar za proširenje i politiku prema susjedima pri Evropskoj komisiji.
Mr. Commissioner, thank you for joining us, first of all.
It's a pleasure.
Let's start with floods and with the aftermath. Around 60 million euros have already been made available for Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia. Serbia will probably get some more money from the Solidarity Fund. So when we speak about Bosnia and Herzegovina, will there be more money available, and for how much more maybe people there can hope for?
First, this is one of the largest operations the European Union is undergoing because the floods are terrible, changing the landscape, particularly in those two countries. And the word solidarity has a very special meaning, particularly vis-à-vis the citizens of those two countries. So let me say it absolutely clear. In this situation, it's not whether you have access to the Fund of Solidarity or any other money. It's not whether this country is eligible for more or less. There are needs in both countries, and we will do our best to deliver on those needs.
Will there be any more money available? Is there any maneuvering space?
Of course there will be. It's beyond any doubt. We made it very clear that this is our initial assistance. And while this initial assistance is made available in both countries, and while sort of this operation of hundreds of the EU experts in both countries continues, and payments more than half of the transport of the various product and goods to those countries is going to continue. We are finalizing the impact assessment or damage assessment reports in both countries. In Serbia, we cooperate in an excellent way with authorities. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, this good cooperation with authorities is being supported by the World Bank and the United Nations. We hope very much to finalize this process still this month, and on that basis there will be additional resources made available.
But money probably can't solve all their problems, I'd say.
That's obvious. That's why I'm trying to say that it's not only about money at this point of the time. It's about also this expertise. There are a number of the issues which we have not really thought we will be dealing with, like the problem of the mines in Bosnia Herzegovina. And I think it's also important at this point of the time to think also about some preventive measures in the future, how to strengthen the regional cooperation in such a way that if the tragedy like this one happens again, that we are better prepared.
And if we try to translate it all to the political level, in the political context, how much more has to be done there?
In the political context, you know what? I think it first has to come from the region itself, and I feel it's coming. I have recently had a number of the opportunities to talk to all Western Balkans countries' foreign ministers and other representatives, and I can confirm that when they talk about the landscape changing, and not only the sort of geographic sense, but also political sense, I'm the one who could say, yes, I see this, the atmospheric different among them. I feel the solidarity among them. I feel the real drive now to get closer to the European Union, because this is where the support could be given, not only to address the current floods, but also whatever might come in the future.
When we talk politics in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it feels as if you gave up a little bit, especially in the context of upcoming elections, without the implementation of the ruling of the Court for Human Rights regarding Sejdić-Finci case and minorities. Can we say that the European Union, in a way, made a step back when it comes to Bosnia? How do you see it?
No, absolutely not. Just the opposite is true. You could say that we have made that step backwards on helping the politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina to address Sejdić-Finci. But it does not mean that we have given up on Bosnia and Herzegovina and that we have given up on the people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Myself, the last time I was in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I made I announced three initiatives. But since then, we have launched this economic compact initiative, addressing the impact of economic and financial crisis and addressing this very difficult situation, particularly for the young people, but not only. So it's not on giving up. We just focusing now on other important issues, and we hope very much that after the parliamentary elections, when the politicians will be ready, and I hope that for the sake of that country, they will be ready sooner than later. We need to come back and we need to address the Sejdić-Finci issue. And we need to address not only the Sejdić-Finci issue, but everything what's sort of behind this particular issue.
But will you find the results of these elections legitimate?
It will be difficult. That's what we were saying to them already for some time. You know that the Council of Europe and the Council of Ministers of the Council of Europe has made a clear statement on these issues. It will be difficult. Does it mean that we're going to give up and we're not going to talk to anyone? We're going to ignore those issues? No, it does not mean. But it's important that the politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina understand that it is them and their lack of actions, the lack of actions from them, which is putting them actually in a more and more difficult situation, and subsequently also the country in a more and more difficult situation. I mean, look at the floods. If I look at the, it's a fancy word, absorption capacity. I mean, the way the authorities in Bosnia and Herzegovina are able to deal with the priorities and with the money being made available and so on, we are definitely below the line of what is required in this kind of situation. And it's not that we have not tried to make the point that the institution in Bosnia and Herzegovina needs to work and needs to work for the benefit of the country, for the benefit of the people. And whenever I'm talking about changing the landscape in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm also talking about changing this kind of landscape, that it is going to be a wake-up call for politicians, because I would say it got country not in the best shape, and I hope the politicians will realize this and would reflect on it.
There will be probably another commissioner dealing with new political setup in Bosnia and Herzegovina. What would be your advice to him, your suggestion maybe?
my suggestion would be not to give up. The frustration is a phenomena which was dealing with the issues in Western Balkans time from time. You have it's a part of the mood. It's a part of the feeling. And I have felt a couple of times the last 4.5 years frustrated, but I have never given up. And even if I have given up on the processes, I have never given up but the hope. The life, the situation in the countries is specific. I mean, us coming from the other parts of the Europe, sometimes we do not appreciate fully the horrors of the war and all those events which are still in the memory of all the people in the Western Balkans. The word reconciliation has a different meaning, a very real meaning in those countries. I wish that my successor, maybe even better than me, sort of grasps the meaning of those words and would approach those difficult issues with a full understanding of how the people feel, what they want, and would not give up if he or she, time from time, feels frustrated.
We can say that Serbia is kind of a success story of your mandate, as well as probably Croatia. Does it make you personally proud, looking back, assessing your years as the Commissioner for Enlargement? Is it something at the end of the day that makes you, okay, the work has been done, fine?
You know, am I happy for the countries which are able to move forward? Yes, I am. But if you ask me what I would consider to be a success story, I think it would not be really a name of the country, although be an enlargement commissioner and starting with 27 and ending with 28, it's not bad. But keeping enlargement alive, relevant, actually being mentioned a couple of times when Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to the European Union, the importance of it being strengthened, that this is the most powerful transformation mechanism the European Union is having. And despite the economic and financial crisis, having this policy actually delivering on the results, and not only that, but also making a concrete steps to turn the enlargement into a credible policy, which helps addressing the fundamentals of the transformation, and which we have been able to move from the ticking of the boxes exercise to the track record in the most important area like rule of law. That, I think, is a success story, and not only for me, but for all of us, and first of all, the people in those countries.
Mentioning rule of law, for example, when can we see opening of these hardest chapters for Serbia, or even when can we see a first chapter being open in negotiation process?
I hope sooner than later. We have...
In weeks, months?
We... I would not expect that before summer break, and I hope after the summer break that there will be an opportunity. It's not necessarily about the preparedness, because we have moved forward a lot as far as the screening process, and I'm very satisfied with the administrative capacity, political will in Serbia to address this in the most effective way. So they are delivering upon our expectations, and the expectations were very high. It's rather the question whether we indeed should start with a with those two, the most important questions dealing with the fundamental freedoms and judiciary, reform, justice, freedom and security, chapter 23 and 24, in a way that those should be the first chapter to be open, or whether there is going to be a window of opportunity to have one or maybe even more chapters which might be ready to open it before. My point of view, my preference is very clear. The screening process takes such a long time that it's important to show the citizens in Serbia that the accession process is not only about the experts from the European Commission digging in the various areas, but it is also about negotiation. So if there is a one chapter open already, to be open, let's say in autumn this year, I will do my best that this is the case. But you're absolutely right, underlining that what is sort of where the expectation is really very high is the chapters 23 and 24. We have now a very good understanding where Serbia stands on those two chapters. The Serbian authorities have a very good, I think, basis from us, the information from us, which would allow them to prepare a comprehensive action plans. And I hope very much that it will be one of those next presidencies being ready to open also those chapters.
According to recent events, it seems that there might be some difficulties regarding energy as well, especially South Stream and the Serbian compliance with EU standards. Do you see any problems, real problems there?
No, I don't expect any problems when it comes to the commitments the Serbs have undertaken, for example, through their membership in Energy Community Treaty. Those were the commitments which were undertaken by them on their free will. So I expect them to deliver on them, whether they sort of whether they refer to the third package, energy package, or anything else. This is one side. The second thing is, of course, the issue of the South Stream and the way the Commission is now keen that all the countries which are in this or that way in the bilateral negotiations or have started to have some kind of contractual arrangement with the Russians, that that the rules, principles as established by the member states and monitored and observed by the commissions are being fulfilled. And that's the continuing discussions with those, not only the member states of the European Union, but also our partners. But I'm sure, I mean, we will find a mutually acceptable solution in addressing also these sensitive issues. And again, I want to make it absolutely clear that on the South Stream, our current position is in no way some kind of reaction to the event in Ukraine. There are other steps undertaken by the member states in reactions to those very unfortunate and actually unacceptable events, particularly concerning the Crimea and the eastern part of Ukraine. But there are certain rules which we need to observe. There are certain rules which are being observed by the member states. There are certain rules we want Serbia and other partners to observe. So, and it's only logical that Russia will fall in that category and that we would make the very strong point that those rules need to be observed also by them.
Serbia is not complying or implementing the EU's decisions when it comes to sanctions, also speaking of Ukraine against Russia and so on. Would you expect Serbia to comply with, to implement these decisions as well?
At the time when joined the European Union, yes, fully, without any exception. But we are at the beginning of accession negotiations, and this is the time when I expect the gradual alignment with the number of the policies, including the common foreign and security policy. But the time for full alignment, the time for a clear commitments there would come when we open and in particular close the respective chapter of the accession negotiations. But before that, I would expect Serbia being free to deliver the policies based on their defined national interest, by the same time making these gradual steps towards the full alignment. And again, the full alignment comes by the time the country accedes to the European Union.
Let's finish slowly with the Ukraine. You made a couple of visits there as well. You were involved in the issue. Would you say that there was anything more that the European Union could have done to prevent this? We've been listening about the third pillar of sanctions and so on, keep postponing it. Were there any mistakes looking back, even though I know it's still very fresh, but do you see that anything could have been done or can be done differently?
That's an issue which makes me sometimes, not to sleep. But at the same time, I could hardly find something what I would change. First, let me address the issue about the sanctions. And here, I would like to make it absolutely clear that the priority should not be to discuss what if we are forced to adopt the third package and what kind of impact it would have on Russia or on us, on the member states. The priority is obvious. It needs to be to avoid such a situation. The priority should be to, if I'm sort of say it in this way, to help President Putin and others not to make another mistake, so this time even worse than the one he made in Crimea. And for that, we have a number of opportunities, not only in trying to find the framework for the peaceful negotiation, for the negotiation of the peaceful settlement there. And the recent presidential elections and President Poroshenko's own ideas are very instrumental in this regard. But if necessary, we have still a number of the space within the second stage, to move, to send the clear message to Russia there. But coming back to your question, whether there was anything we would do differently, we should have done differently. We have started the negotiation with Ukraine 7 years ago. Not because someone in Brussels thought it would be actually good to make Ukraine to negotiate and sign a treaty which would bring Ukraine closer to the European Union. It was a reaction to the Ukrainian repeated plea to offer a new legally binding basis for the relationship which would bring Ukraine closer to the European Union. I see actually only two things which I think we still need to reflect in the European Union. The first one is, if you have a consensual and very ambitious policy towards the Eastern partners, it should not end on the borders of the Eastern partners. Because if you have not that consensual and not that ambitious policy towards Russia, sooner or later, it might bring on the table a number of the questions we might have all, not only us, all difficulties to answer. That does not mean that I'm saying that we have not offered Russia the negotiations and discussions about the implications of the association agreement on the neighbors of our neighbors. We did, a number of times. We have never got a positive reply until very recently. Do I think that the light at the end of the tunnel? Yeah, you might argue whether it's a bright enough, but yes, it is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I hope very much that not only in the case of Ukraine, even more so in the case of Western Balkans and in our neighborhood in general, that we will be bold and that we would respond when someone is knocking on the door and saying, not only I want your prosperity or I want your money, but they are knocking on our doors because they are saying, we want to have the same values and principles. We want to have the rule of law actually functioning as it functions in your countries. We want sort of the corruption not to be the overwhelming problem in our country, and we want to have the principles, the institutions, the laws to fight it as you have it. Because once the people stop to knock on the door of the European Union, I'll be the first one to scream, we have a problem. We have a big problem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.